Alex Shephard, reporter at the New Republic, joins me. Alex, look, it's remarkable, isn't it, every time we see these stories, and they are replicated all around the United States. The country isn't at war, but it goes and protects other countries, but this just continues to happen. Do you think there will ever be substantial change politically that will stop this kind of thing?
I mean, I think that it's almost become a cliche at this point, but, I think there was a point after the Sandy Hook shooting in which, 18 kindergartners were, brutally murdered, that I think, for a lot of us, that we sort of realized that large-scale change was impossible. We've seen that obviously replicated very recently, but again, too, you get to a point where, I come on this program every week or two, and it feels like, particularly, I think, since the country has, reopened, that we have one of these or several of these to talk about every time. It's almost hard to keep them all straight. I think there's another aspect as well, which is just that there was a sort of bill passed, the first really significant piece of gun legislation that's been passed in decades, since the early 1990s. But that bill itself actually really had very little to do with guns itself. It expanded background checks. It provided more mental health funding for schools. It closed a few loopholes that prevent domestic abusers from getting guns, but it didn't actually really do anything to limit the sale of guns, particularly guns that are capable of killing lots of people in a very short time, the type of gun that we saw used at Highland Park, the type of gun we saw used in Buffalo, the type of gun we saw used in Uvalde. And I think that there simply isn't political will for that to happen, and I think that I think is one of the things that's most discouraging. And it also points to another grim irony of the pandemic, which is that this country shut down for a period of time, and there was a period of several months in which mass shootings were, had slowed significantly. But it took a sort of a different type of mass death event for that to happen, not governmental action.
Do you think it would take someone enormously wealthy or an organisation enormously wealthy to combat the NRA and start, donating a lot of money politically, or would it have to be a generational change? Because, pardon me, as we can see with the younger generation, the whole thought processes are so different.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a chance that over time that these issues will shift. Particularly, I've been reporting for most of this week on attitudes among young Democratic voters, and they are both significantly more anti-gun, particularly anti-assault rifle, than older voters, but I think also are deeply angry at the failure of both the Democratic and the larger political establishment to do anything. These are people who have been doing gun safety drills or school shooting drills in their classrooms since the time that they were 4 or 5 years old. It's just a grotesque way to grow up. One of the issues is that a lot of these changes are largely popular. An assault weapons ban is pretty popular within the country. It's grown slightly. It had grown slightly less popular, and it's now rising in popularity again. But and yet, despite the fact that these issues are largely popular, I think part of the problem is that the country is so polarized, and that Republican voters, by and large, are fervently pro-gun, that it does prevent any sort of action like this from happening. There was some bipartisan action to pass this pretty milquetoast gun bill that Joe Biden signed on July earlier this month, but even that, it took an enormous amount of arm twisting just to get to 60 votes in the Senate. And you're just not going to see anything like that for anything more significant.